Hello and welcome to another video. So we're going to be looking at the next lot of cards. We have quite a few to go through as they have been rapid firing them out over the last couple of days, as I wanted to make one yesterday and decided no, there's too many cards coming out, we'll wait till the next. So here we are and we have a lot to go through. So the first one is the Omen of Repose. The Havencraft Legendary is a 4/4, which is not bad for 4, so pretty respectable stat lines. Fanfare, give your opponent a play point, subtract 1 from the countdown of all enemy amulets, restore 1 defense to the enemy leader, your opponent draws a card, give an empty play point, gain an empty play point, subtract 1 from the countdown of all allied amulets, restore 1 defense to your leader, and draw a card. This follower can't take more than 3 damage at a time as it's an evolve effect, and that's a pretty okay effect. So, while the ball of text for its unevolved effect is quite large, it boils down to both players getting a play point, subtracting the countdown of all amulets on board, restoring 1 defense to both leaders, and drawing a card each. So, that's pretty straightforward. This follower cannot take more than 3 damage, is really good considering it has a 6/6 stat line on Evo, so, I mean, it's going to survive at least 2 attacks here, which is going to be pretty good, so not too bad. Other than that, I think the fact that it gives you a heal is going to be pretty monstrous, especially for a 4-drop and drawing a card. Even if it draws it for your opponent as well, I think with things like Tenka, it's going to be much more substantial and will have a pretty solid place in a good deck. But, I mean, that's not going to be the only one, so we've got the Apostle of Repose, a 4-drop 1/4 gold. It's a Bane with an evolve effect of at the end of your turn. If this follower didn't attack this turn, randomly destroy one of the strongest enemy followers in play. This is actually quite an insane card. I really think this is going to be a pretty nice powerhouse to clearing things out, especially when you consider an amulet that we're going to look at later on, which will protect things like this from being destroyed when you don't attack with them. So that's going to be pretty solid. The Bane on its own is already really good. The 4-drop health line means it's really hard to clear with removal, and having the effect go off will be super consistent. I think it'll be really nice. Then we have Disciple of Repose, the 2-drop 2/2 silver Havencraft card. At the end of your turn, if this follower didn't attack this turn, deal 1 damage to the enemy leader, so basically a pretty solid ping effect. I mean, it's going to be fairly good because when you play this and you can't attack with it, obviously the turn you play it, you'll already get the ping effect, so that's really, really nice. Then we have Servant of Repose, a 3-drop 1/4. So, Fanfare, enhance 6, gain +3/+3 in ward. At the end of your turn, if this follower didn't attack this turn, restore 1 defense to your allies. Sorry, it's just super early. Anyway, this is pretty solid. A 3-drop 1/4 stat line again is still quite good. Like I said, hard to remove, so using this, then going into the 4-drops are going to be quite nice. Using the, at the end of your turn, this follower didn't attack, restore 1 defense to all allies. That includes your leader, of course, so again, works well with things like Tenko or other healing-based decks, and will have a really solid place in those decks. Outside of that, though, I think that's basically all this thing's got. It's got a full evo stat, so that's always good too, but overall, I think the Repose cards are going to be very solid additions to Havencraft, and probably open up some very interesting deck lines. Then we have a Goblin Fighter, the 2-drop 2/1 neutral card. Fanfare, randomly put one of the following cards into your hand, a Goblin or Goblin Leader. I think this card is average. I mean, it's definitely not good. It's going to be more take 2 fodder than anything. After all, I mean, Goblin Fighter, it's just bad 2/1 stat line. Getting a Goblin might be okay. Getting a Goblin Leader, not quite as good, but overall, I think this card is a solid addition to Goblins as an archetype, and could really be quite interesting if we get more Goblins in the future to really fill out the decks. Then we have Rapier Master, a 1-drop 1/1 gold for Swordcraft. It is an officer. It's got a pretty interesting effect. So it's all fanfares, of course. They're enhanced, so they go up in 2. So enhanced 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. They gain +1/+1 for each enhance. So in enhanced 10, you would have a +5 on this, which isn't anything too big to sneeze at, but the bigger thing is it gets Bane, Ward, and Rush on each corresponding enhance from 4 to 8, which is fairly interesting. It's a pity it's not the other way around. I would have preferred Rush, Ward, Bane instead, but we'll have to settle for this as it's not a bad card. It's a 1-drop 1/1 at standard and instantly goes up to enhanced 2, so I mean, you got playability at pretty much every turn here. Then we have Inspired Inventor, a 1-drop 1/1 silver portal card. This one I actually don't mind too much. It's a cheap 1-drop, which makes it effective in most portal decks. Fanfare, choose, put either a Miraculous Invention or a Hazardous Invention into your hand. So the Miraculous Invention is a 2-drop amulet silver for artifact. It is like having an artifact trait on a amulet is going to be really interesting. Can't be destroyed by spells and effects. At the end of your turn, if your leader has 10 defense or less, restore 3 defense to your leader and banish this amulet. So these amulets that can't be destroyed will go along with the other cards that we're going to look at, and I think they have a lot of potential. So Hazardous Invention is a 1-drop silver amulet, can't be destroyed by spells and effects. At the end of your turn, if the enemy leader has 10 defense or less, deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower and 1 damage to enemy leader, then banish this amulet. So both artifacts, really good, quite enjoy that. We have the Apostle of Craving, a 5-drop 5/4 gold. Fanfare, give +3/+0 to a follower, give that follower the following effect. Whenever this follower attacks, deal 3 damage to this follower. So it's going to be rough with that effect, because gaining the extra stats but then losing that to health means you have to have a 4-statted follower to really help out. Otherwise it's going to be pretty weak. Being a neutral means you've got some nice variety with it, but I think a buff deck might be off the cards for neutral like this, especially with Craving. Then we have Omen of Destruction, the 4-drop 1/4 legendary for Portalcraft. It has Bane, can't be destroyed by spells and effects, which is pretty important. I mean, giving something to Portal like this that can't be destroyed by spells and effects is huge. Its Evo is put a destruction in white into your hand, cannot be destroyed by spells and effects still, so retaining that effect is going to be absolutely monstrous. Making sure you play this going second on Evo will be absolutely crazy with destruction in white. And being able to really gain advantage off it should be pretty easy. So destruction in white here is a 10-drop amulet. It is an artifact, which is great to know, because knowing that these things are artifacts are very important. Fanfare, put a destruction in black into your hand. Whenever an allied follower is destroyed, subtract 1 from the cost of this card. So puppets might be able to abuse this fairly easily, as you can gain puppets fairly quickly and be able to abuse that early. Artifacts, obviously more mid to late game you'd be abusing it, but I think this card could see potential in a control deck. Can't be destroyed by spells and effects again. Quite a interesting one, as there are cards that are going to combo with that quite nicely. At the start of your turn, restore 2 defense to your leader. So this is a healing one, which is great. It means artifacts are going to have a really solid healing. It's not countdown, so you don't have to worry about that, and everything else is going to work really well with it. It also gives you a destruction in black, of course, which was mentioned, so it's a 10-drop. Whenever an allied follower is destroyed, subtract 1 from the cost of this card. Cannot be destroyed by spells and effects. At the start of your turn, deal 5 damage to all enemies. If an allied destruction in white is in play, deal 10 damage instead. So this is absolutely crazy combo potential. This is going to possibly be a 10 clear, and if you have got destruction of white removed from your board, this is going to be even more nuts, as it's going to have the free board state and going to be able to deal 5 damage. So I think this card has a lot of versatility and is going to be quite solid. It's just getting to this card that will be hard. I think artifacts are going to have a little bit more trouble than, say, puppets, although you can play a lot of free artifacts using Excel, so maybe it has some potential. Definitely a card I'm interested in playing and building decks around. So these are the cards that are going to combo with these undestroyable amulets. This is Apostle of Destruction, a 4-drop 3/3 gold. Fanfare, destroy an allied Portalcraft follower or amulet whenever without countdown. So the important part there is amulet without countdown. All the cards that we've talked about now don't have a countdown on them, so put a copy of that card into your hand and subtract 3 from its cost. So I'm not 100% this is how this is going to work, but the only way I can see this working for this archetype to actually be possible would be that you can target one of those undestroyable amulets and the effects will still go off. So it'll try and execute the first part of the effect. Even if that fails, the second part of the effect should still execute. So say you targeted one of the inventions. If it's not destroyed, you put one into your hand, subtract 3 from its cost. That's pretty solid. It would make sense that that's how it should work. If it doesn't work like that, basically all these cards are going to be pretty bad. But if it does, then these are going to be pretty insane cards for Portal and open up a whole new archetype as well. So Disciple of Destruction is a 2-drop 1/2 silver. Destroy an allied Portalcraft follower or amulet without countdown, and then draw 2 cards. So again, this is another one of those cards that has a lot of versatility, not just in the fact that You can use it with the amulets. The fact that this card is just a standard 2-drop 1/2 draw 2, basically a Demon Eater for Portal, is absolutely nuts, having a nice draw effect. Then we have Servant of Destruction, so it's a 3-drop 2/3 bronze. Fanfare, destroy an allied follower or amulet for Portalcraft, and then deal 3 damage to a random enemy follower, so just a potential clear one. Not quite as good as the other two, I don't think, but still quite solid. Then we have Omen of Craving, the other neutral Omen, a 7-drop 3/5 legendary. Ambush and Drain, which is pretty nuts, having those two stats on it. Fanfare, give +2 to all other allied followers at the start of your turn. If this is your 10th turn or later, both players draw 5 cards. So I thought about this card a lot. It's taken me a lot to really think about. Of course, Ektar is the immediate thing you compare it to, but Ektar is only a temporary buff. This is a permanent buff, which is quite good. The draw could help as well in more less draw heavy decks. Ambush and Drain, both good as well, being able to give you some potential. Overall, though, I'm not really sure if I like this card or not. It's definitely solid. Not sure where we'll see it, but who knows? It could potentially be in some big decks. Then we have the Portalcraft Bronze card, Wind Up, a 2-drop spell. Quite interesting. Put a puppet into your hand. If Resonance active, you put 2 into your hand instead. This is where I think this kind of card could come in extremely handy with the new legendary, as getting those puppets early will be important because you could trade those and activate those effects. Will this be as good as Puppet Portal? Maybe not. Will this be an addition? Probably. Apostle of Usurping, so we're getting to the Sword Apostles now, so we also have the legendary and other things to look at, but keep in mind that this is an officer, which is really important to know with Swordcraft cards. It is a 5-drop 4/5 Fanfare, deal 1 damage to an enemy, randomly put one of the following cards into your hand: Gilded Blade, Gilded Goblet, Gilded Boots, or Gilded Necklace. Whenever you play a loot card, so that's what the Gilded cards are, I believe, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. So we're going to take a look at those cards whenever they come up here. They should come up in a moment, but we'll go through all these first. Disciple, so of Usurping, all of these cards are based around a similar premise, but it's a 3-drop 2/2 Ambush. Whenever you play a loot card, gain a +0/+1. Whenever this follower attacks, randomly put one of the following cards into your hand. Then it's all the loot cards. Servant is a 2-drop 1/1 bronze. Clash, gain +1/+1. Randomly put one of the loot cards into your hand. Then we have the legendary is a 3-drop 2/3. This is actually quite interesting. Remove all last word effects on an enemy follower and give those effects to this follower. Fanfare, enhance 8, gain +2/+2, and the ability to evolve for 0 evolution points. Recover 2 play points. So effectively this will be played as a 6-drop on turn 8, which is fairly good. The fact that with the evolve, randomly put 2 of the following cards in your hand, you can also use this as a loot card on its own, which is quite good. And the Fanfare for remove all last word effects will be really good against something like Shadow, which has a lot of last word effects. There are also a few other cards that this could be quite good against, but I feel like Shadow is going to lose the most against this card, as it's just got that many good last word effects to target, and a lot of potential going forward, as it is quite a cheap legendary. It is a commander though, so do keep those in mind, as every single other card seems to have been an officer. So here are the loot cards. So a new trait, loot, not bad. A 1-drop spell, deal 1 damage to an enemy follower. Then we have another one, give +1/+1 to an allied follower, give rush to an allied follower, or restore 2 defense to an allied follower. So all these loot cards are actually pretty decent. None of them are outright bad, I don't think. So definitely really cool concept, and we'll be really interested to see a sword deck built around these. So we have Hornet Soldier, a 5-drop 5/4 silver for Forest. Fanfare, choose, put either a Hornet Warrior or a Hornet Sting into your hand. Put both in your hand instead if at least 2 other cards are played this turn. Hornet Warrior is a Rush and Bane, 2-drop 1/1. And Hornet Sting is a 3-drop spell, deal 3 damage to an enemy leader. So this is pretty interesting card, and definitely not a bad one. It is a 5-drop of course at its base, so it's definitely heavy on the drop, but if you can get both of these to go off with Hornet Warrior and Hornet Sting, you're looking at a pretty comfortable card. Then we have the Gleaming Axe, a 7-drop 4/4 for Forest. This one I'm a little more interested in. It has Ward. Whenever this allied follower is destroyed, subtract 1 from the cost of this card. So you can make a pretty cheap Ward out of this, which has potential to go in more Controls Forest type deck, which honestly couldn't be too bad. Then we have Craving's Splendor, a 3-drop spell. Give +4 to an allied, +4 to a follower. A follower is important to know. Then deal 4 damage to that follower. So this has potential with things like Lyriel to really combo out really nicely. Sorry, not Lyriel, Lyra. Gotta remember, very similar names. Because Lyra, of course, won't take damage from this and gain a buff instead, which is pretty nuts. Being neutral, it can go in pretty much any single deck you want. Going to be good in a Haven deck where you have high defense stat lines and healing. Also going to be really solid as it is also a 3-drop deal 4 damage to an enemy follower, which is super nice. Being able to potentially clear almost every drop in the 4-drop zone, which is going to be crazy. So definitely a nice card. It's got a lot of versatility to it, being able to target any followers you want. So really happy to see something like that. Then we have Usurping Spineblade. It's a 2-drop silver bronze, deal 3 damage to an enemy follower. Randomly put one of the following cards into your hand, so it is just a loot gain card with a damage effect on it. Really good to see this though. It's really solid, and I think this has a lot of more potential than some of the other cards we've seen for Sword in the past, as Sword was one of those classes that was always missing a decent 2 play point 3 damage card that didn't have any kind of drawback to it at all, and this one actually has a nice bonus, so really happy to see that for Sword. Then we have probably one of my favorite cards, Realm of Repose. It is a 2-drop bronze amulet, so a pretty simple card. It does have countdown 2, so it's not a forever card. But at the end of your turn, if no allied followers attacked this turn, your leader cannot receive more than 3 damage at a time, and all Havencraft followers can't be attacked. These effects last until the start of your next turn. So absolutely awesome card, honestly. I think this will be really good for survivability. A lot of cards you see that people think are really cool and usually a win more type of card. Personally, I prefer the ones that are come from behind cards, so this is one of them, where this could potentially save you in many situations. You have the potential to use this with all the Repose cards to get their effects without having to worry about them being instantly destroyed. Survivability goes through the roof with this card and gives you a lot of potential. Then we have Destructive Refrain. So it's a 4-drop gold spell. It is Portalcraft. Destroy an allied Portalcraft follower or Portalcraft amulet without countdown. Deal X damage to all enemy followers. X equals the cost of that card. So this potentially can give you some massive clearing force, both with the new amulets and with the old amulets. I think this is what really kind of sealed it for me, that we're going to be able to get these effects without having to worry about them actually being destroyed, because you wouldn't use this art and then limit the effect to only things that can be destroyed. I think that would be silly, but absolutely nuts. I think even with the low cost stuff, you've got potential for low cost clears, you've got potential for high cost clears, and that's really, really solid for Portalcraft. Then we have Wings of Lust, a 2-drop silver for Bloodcraft. Give +2/+2 to an allied follower. That follower gains the following effect. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to your leader and this follower. Enhance 4. Give drain to that follower. So the fact that you have Enhance 4 is going to be fairly solid. It's going to give you a nice bit of buffing to your follower, plus protect you from the fact that you're going to be taking damage, and that's what Blood needs. Blood has got a lot of Dark Feast bat support by the looks of it, which is fairly interesting. We've seen a lot of the other Bloodcraft cards. I don't think they've actually been put up on the Twitter yet, so that's why we haven't covered them, but I'm sure they'll be some of the next cards we see, as I think they're about the only cards that haven't been leaked or announced that haven't been posted to the Twitter. So if they have, I apologize, and we'll get to those next time. Actually, I think we covered them in the last video. I gotta remember, it's been a couple days. I think we did cover them all in the last video, but either way, Blood's getting a lot of Dark Feast bat support. That's going to be absolutely nuts. Portal's getting a lot of really interesting cards, and so is Haven. I think those three, considering they're my 3 favorite classes, have got some of the most interesting support out of this whole expansion. Right up there with Sword, actually. Sword has some really interesting cards too, and I really can't wait to see how that plays out. So if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe. We'll be covering the next lot of cards, obviously, next. We're about halfway through all the cards now. There aren't that many more to go, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We've almost covered all the Omens too. All that will be left is Dragon, which I have seen a leak for. We just haven't got the officials, so look forward to that soon. Till next time, see ya.